Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, my cryptic talk title. Stefan wrote me if I want to talk at the meetup, and I said, yeah, for sure, but I can't disclose the topic for now. And then I thought for 4 weeks, and he wrote me again, what are you going to talk about? And then I proposed some weird title, and now I have to talk about some weird title. So the idea, and I think the title was, and why Booleans suck, or why I hate Booleans. Let's try it this way, or why avoiding Booleans make me happier in certain cases and when I'm in the mountains. So, yeah, smooth animation. Yeah, a few words were already spoken about mine. I'm studying psychology, so I'm a bit wrong here, not that much because I did software engineering before, and I'm software architect and psychology intern at InnerSpace. This is a bit hard to get if you're doing psychology in the morning and type theory in the evening. And I'm co-organizing the UNCOPE Friends, so if anybody of you wants to visit the mountains next year, it would be great. And all the material and topic today will be visible here and on GitHub at my profile. So, what's the problem? Because the talk title is so cryptic. This is how the Twitter macOS client looked like back in 2016. And I have taken this picture from a blog post. Most of the things today I'm going to talk about. And the worst part here is the 0 retweets and 0 likes, because that's not actually the way it is. And so that's not true, but the UI, when you first started, displays this 0 and 0. Or if you start Slack, then sometimes you had, or I don't know how it's now, because usually I open Slack and then I wait for 2 minutes until it's open in the background and I switch back and then everything's loaded. But it used to be like you don't have any messages and then it loads it. So I think most of us, if not all of us, have to do some kind of data loading during their job. And who of you has written code or a data model like this one, that there is a loading flag and you have an error and you have data? Nice, exactly. Yeah, I think we used to learn it like this way, and we're sometimes perfectly fine, and we don't really think about this because this is the first thing that comes to your mind when you're thinking of data loading. So then something like this can happen. Is loading is set to true, you have an error, and you have nothing loaded. And I think this is not really true, so maybe, because we can't be in the loading state and have an error. The one German sentence in the video is, wenn du so vehement die Ursachenforschung unterbindest, musst du dich nicht wundern, dass sich das Problem nicht lösen lässt. I don't know if anybody of you read the Känguru Apokryphen from Marc-Uwe Kling, otherwise I really can recommend it. Or in English, if you stop researching the cause so hard, you should not be surprised that the problem cannot be solved. So if we go back to this impossible UI state, why not think of it once again, how we can actually remodel data fetching using types. And now I want to introduce the concept of remote data with 2 generic types to you. Who of you has worked with TypeScript? Nice, not a surprise at a JavaScript meetup. So let's define a type meetup, which is either the StahlstadtJS or the, let's start it the other way around. Yeah, sorry. This better? And? Nice. Or we have the Blauschall. Who of you has seen this union type with the pipe in between two types? Oh, nice. Have you actually found real use cases where this is really useful? Not that many, but yeah, that's good. So, because now we can define a function, let's call it goTo, And meetup. I always have to type on a Windows keyboard, it's awful. And the meetup, and we have a bit of. So we can now get TypeScript's type safety. Probably this would be better.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah. So now, exactly. Yeah. If we write something else here, TypeScript will warn us that this condition will always return false since the types meetup and ASDF have no overlap. So we can define a union type that can be either this case, or you can also write more cases. So let's think about the about some remote data or data you want to fetch once again. Let's write it. We have this data type. We can say we have a remote data object if we forget there is loading flag and all this stuff. And our remote data lies somewhere else. And it can either be initialized, but nothing is there. It can be in pending state, so the data is loading. And it can be in failure state with some type of the failure, or in success state with some type of the data you wanted to load. And now you have a kind of way better description what your data or what the state of our current data you're fetching is than is loading and error and data, because it can't be, there can't be an error or a loading state at the same time. So let's go to the app I prepared. Because I'm studying psychology, we always, I think this should also be a bit larger. We always have to talk about correlations. And I think it's really interesting, the correlation between field of study and IQ, because the only tests we learned in 4 semesters are IQ tests. No, I'm just kidding. I did this example once at FH Hagenberg, and I think this is enough told why this can be funny there. So just take some courses, software engineering, or if people are here, and or yeah. Yeah, don't make them mad. And psychology, so no. Yeah, it doesn't matter. And now we can calculate the correlation. And it's loading, or there happened an error. So let's try it again. Now we have a correlation. And so let's switch to the code of this. It's a correlation component. A lot of template stuff. It's, well, let me check if, yeah. So this app is written in Vue.js because my first talk was in Vue.js, and I'm currently doing Vue at work, but framework doesn't matter. Remote data is a concept that is not even applied only applicable to the web, just where you fetch remote data. So this is the usual solution. We have a correlation this way, we have an is loading, and we have an error message. And then if you call refresh, we try at first because there could be an error, and then we set is loading to true, we set the error message to null, and then we calculate the correlation. It's just a promise that returns the correlation. And don't wonder why there are no arguments, we'll come to that later. And we catch an error, and then we set is loading to false. Who of you has written these lines of code or writes them regularly? Okay, first question, who of you has written these few lines of code? And who writes them at least once a week or sometimes? How are you all doing data fetching? Okay, because you can easily forget this finally, and just set the is loading in the back here. The thing I'm talking about is is you have to do all the state stuff by yourself. You have to keep track of the loading, you have to keep track of the error message, and then when displaying it in the UI, you have to check for the error if the error message is not null, and you have to know that the error message can be null. TypeScript can help you here, but this is a Vue template or Angular templates, and I'm not that big fan of templates because you don't really get type checking up here. So you basically write this code and try it in runtime if it actually works. And it's so you have to, and as an example here, we are cheating a bit because we set the correlation to 0 in the beginning, as I told you before with the Slack example. So there is a 0 here, but there is no correlation here. So we could either set this to null or set this this way and then check if it is null up here or something else. So why not completely rethink it and build a safe correlation component? So in the safe correlation component, we'll have a correlation that is a remote data of string. This is the T error of the talk title, and number. This is the TSuccess, so the data type of the actual thing we are fetching. And we set it at first to initialized. And then we have the refresh function again, and at first we set it to pending. And then we set the correlation to await, and then there is this helper function that's called with remote handling, and you pass it a function that returns a promise, so it can actually execute the thing and get the stuff at once. So these remote data stuff is from, usually there is a library called RemoteData, or it's just a few simple lines of code, which actually is, there are 4 classes: initialized, pending, failure, and success, and they have a kind type, and this is success, failure. So TypeScript can actually discriminate if you're in success, pending, failure, or initialized state. So this is all we needed first, because now we can take a look at the safe correlation and take a look at the view. If we, so there is this bit large now. Let me get this stuff. So here we go. And we have this, now we can display the correlation with not those if is null checks or something like that. We can ask if the correlation kind is initialized or it is pending, then we display pending, and initialized we display 3 dots. At success we get the data, and at failure we actually get the error. And it's really declarative, the code you write, and so it's, at least for me, way easier to read because you don't have to think through application flow, you just write it in a declarative manner. And if we save that and switch the save core, let's do it this way. Another downside of templates is that you can't actually really good rename it. So so here we are, we have the safe correlation, and now those 3 dots are displayed. And now we can calculate the correlation, and because in psychology most of the stuff is really serious, we can also calculate the correlation and without any values, because it's just a random number. As far as I got from my studies, this is like it. So we are now either we have this pending state, or we are in an error state, that something unexpected happened, this is the error, or we have pending again, and if we click again, we have the success state. And we have all of this in our type system. Why not make it even easier and build a view component in this way, or it doesn't matter which framework you want to use, that's called RemoteData view. And you can put it in like this. So, or pull it down. And now you can bind the remote data. So we have no higher correlation here. We'll come to that in a minute. And now we have slots for initialized, pending, success, failure. So this is just the way Vue handles this stuff. So if we want to display any remote data in our application, in the future we can just take this component and say in the success way we want to render this stuff, or in the failure way we want to render this stuff. And we can easily compose our application and always get a UI that is in a correct state if you're fetching data. So let's build the higher correlation. And there is this function, or it's a computed property in this thing that's called higher correlation. Don't mind the Vue stuff. It's just, it derives from the normal correlation and adds 0.2 because probably we want to write our bachelor thesis and it's better if we have a higher correlation there. So let's just fake the data a bit. And if we have those two components synced, and this one is higher. And you can write it really easily because there is this map function, and it just adds 0.2 if the data is actually in success state. So we don't have to check if we are in success or if it is null or think of all those conditions. We can just use the map function of the remote data package and then apply some data transformation or whatever we want to. So I think this is basically what I wanted to show you with remote data for now. And I'm doing most of this because I once read this quote in Chris Allen's Haskell book. And he said, we have limited space for our working memory, and using it up for anything a computer can do for us is counterproductive. And managing the is loading for us is counterproductive if we have a mechanism that does it automatically for us. So, short recap. Being intelligent is not having some magic formula which can one apply to every problem. It is rather having a number of formulas and not being so much in love with one that it cannot be dropped for another. Charles M. Weinberg wrote a book called The Psychology of Computer Programming. Yeah, and it's a must read for me. And there are a lot of wise quotes like these in there. So what I just showed you, or maybe it was too much, I just wanted to show you this idea of how to handle remote data differently. And you can try it or think of it whatever you want, but it's just an alternative way of doing it. And there is a real long or a real broad article series, which I don't know the name of the guy who started it, but it's Chris Jenkins. I think he's called Chris Jenkins, and it's the original article is laying a UI Jenkster. It's how Elm slays a UI anti-pattern. Elm is a functional language for the web, and those remote types, you can type them way easier there, and you get much more from the compiler in this way. And then there are implementations for React, Angular, all the stuff. So it is not really framework dependent. It would really get interesting if we take a look into the remote data view component, because here we have now abstracted this kind of thing away that we check if the kind is initialized and all the stuff. And we would also have a function. And now, let me check if we get this. This is just because Angie is the Vue expert I know. And I'm not good enough at Vue, actually, to make it work before. So I have a small task for you or whoever wants to do it. There's this function called fold. And fold is a function, it's nearly working, is a function of the remote data I took over from the package. And the idea is that you pass it 4 functions, one to handle initialized, one to handle pending, one to handle failure, one to handle success, and then you pass it the actual state. And the type you get back is the same for all 4. So you can say, okay, I want to fold my remote data down to one, let's say a vnode to actually render something in React or whatever, or to a string or to a web component. So you get these if kind of thing in the remote data view stuff. You get it for free because you can just pass those functions in, and you automatically get exhaustive switches because you can't forget one of your initialized pending or whatever state. But it's a bit hard to do with type safety in Vue.js. I know it is easier in React, or yeah, choose whatever you want to do. So was it way too much, or was it a bit reasonable, and could you follow to the idea of stuff? Okay, nice, this is good. Because the last thing I want to do until Stefan asks me if he can use my laptop is to just, I hope I'm allowed to just announce the next year's date for Unconference.io. It's an unconference about software engineering in the heart of Tyrol in Austria, in Wattens. It's in the office of my company and a few others, and we're organizing it for the third time next year, and we would be happy if software engineers are there. And the mountains are beautiful, and we'll go hiking the day afterwards, so the picture was not in there for nothing. So yeah, then thanks a lot, and I'll open it for questions or whatever. Any questions? Yeah, you were.
Do you feel anything missing from that abstraction? For example, if you want to trigger some behavior when you enter the error state, for example?
When you enter what?
When you enter the error state, for example, or stuff like, does it help with the fact, with the actual function of the component, or is it just the nice stuff on top of view layer where you now know if you're in the loading state? I usually try to write all the stuff framework agnostic, but the point you're telling, so if you want to trigger something, if it changes the state, this is hard with this really puristic or really small and easy approach, but you could add the functions to your own implementation of RemoteData. The idea of this is just to show the idea, and we use it for all basically simple data display stuff. That's the 90% case in our case, and the other way we're doing our custom solutions. Yeah.
It was just a filler question to someone. How hard was it to not say terror once in the whole presentation?
It was actually harder writing it because PowerPoint autocorrected the capital E to a small one, but it's yeah. So yeah, then I have one question. Then you're allowed. Can anybody of you think that this might be useful in applications or thinking of it? Okay, this is because what I wanted to reach. Thanks. Yeah, Stefan.
Can they use a notebook for the reference?
For sure, but it's